Public schools have subjects all wrong. You go to school and they separate it out into English and history and math and economics and geography, all these separate topics, but that is not how our brain works. Our brains are masters and amazing at navigating divided attention. I want you to think about yourself at a grocery store. Not even in the grocery store yet. You get there to the grocery store in the parking lot and you have your kids with you. You are managing in your mind, making sure you have your list with you, that you bring your keys out of the car, you get your kids into the shopping cart safely. Then there's the path from the car getting into the grocery store. You're making sure cars aren't coming too close to your children, that one of them isn't wandering off in some other direction. There's so many things that your brain can do in a very quick amount of time. There is no reason to be separating out all the subjects into their own little categorized boxes, okay? So this is called compartmentalization, okay? Compartmentalizing the subjects into all of their own little things. Public schools, box curriculums, they are masters at it, putting everything about one subject into one little tiny space. But the problem is we don't live in textbooks. We don't naturally learn that way. It keeps it all separate. It doesn't connect it, and it makes it really sterile from each other, as if there's nothing to do from one to the other. But that is so far from the truth. Okay, curiosity doesn't exist in a box, right? How many of you have taught your children about a certain subject and then they start asking you random questions about things that are vaguely related? And it's very frustrating. You spend all this time and you want to get through your curriculum and you have a deadline, you got to get there, but then you're just met with, why is the cloud moving like that outside the window? Or why do ants come in our house and go into our sink? Or why can't we just go outside and play, right? You have all these questions that your kids want to ask you, and all you're trying to do is, learn about tectonic plates, right? So we want to dump this idea of compartmentalizing the subjects, okay? We want to combine them. I have a really good example of this, okay? So today, my kids and I read a thing about Pascal. He was a mathematician, okay? So within this little write-up about Pascal, okay, let's see here. What was his first name? Blaise. Okay, so there's all this stuff in here about Blaise Pascal, okay? And one of the things that it brings up is that as a child, he really wanted to learn about geometry, and his dad didn't want to because he was afraid it would interrupt his Latin and Greek lessons. So what does Blaise do? He goes and he starts drawing things on the ground. He starts actually noticing a lot of things about shapes and actually starts to create his own ideas and philosophies in math. To the point where when he turns, I think it's about 19 or so, he actually invents the very first calculator. His dad did taxes and he made it because he thought it would help his dad do taxes. So right there, we're learning about Blaise Pascal. If your kids don't know a lot about geography, then of course you could show them where France is on the map, okay? Then it goes into Blaise's different thoughts on life, okay? So it's bringing up, what is the purpose of life? How do we know, what's true? And after some experiences, he realizes that he himself does believe in God, okay? Then it brings up something called Pascal's wager. So Pascal's wager said, if you believe in God and he is real, you gain everything. If you believe and he's not real, you lose nothing. But if you don't believe and he is real, you risk losing everything. So right there, that little passage turned into quite the discussion with my kids, okay? So now we're going into philosophy, right? Philosophy, religion, all those types of things. Then, of course, he's a math person. So then a little later, then it said, because he was talking about nature and how it is eternal. So he says, nature is an infinite sphere, the center of which is everywhere and the circumference nowhere. So this is a deep concept for a child to grasp. Even if it's a teenager, right? So we had a discussion about this. We talk about things like infinity. My 17-year-old, he's watching a class on quantum mechanics or quantum physics right now. So I was like, oh, this is just up his alley. But we actually had quite the discussion because he felt that it didn't make sense. But then once we started talking about how like a sphere obviously has a center, it has to have a center spot. But the problem is as it expands, your infinite sphere, you can never know how big it is. So this led into all sorts of fun discussion on that. And then the last part of it was about Pascal's triangle. So you may have seen something like this before. Okay, so we went and then created our own Pascal triangles. Okay, and we watched a short TED Talk on Pascal triangles and on Pascal's triangle. And then it had pointed out that if you go far enough and you color in every negative number, that you'll come up with these really cool patterns. It also brought up the fact that like if the x plus y to the nth power can be found and explained within, the answers can be found within the triangle. So there was like advanced math explained in it. And so we then, one of my sons had brought up that something called, there's a guy named Philip Glass, and he had a song called Einstein on the Beach, and it was all related to numbers. So then what we did is we listened to that, which was avant-garde music, which my children did not super enjoy, but they've experienced it now. And while that was being listened to, we created our Pascal triangles. And I was super excited because I went way farther because I wanted to see the pattern. And if you can see, I made a mistake right there, but that's okay. I do the stuff with my kids as often as possible because I like to see them see me also being curious. So that is one tiny example from today of how just talking about a person, a mathematician, also brought up philosophy. It brought up religion. It brought up math. It brought up music, geography, right? All of that from one tiny thing, right? So I'm a great proponent for letting children, like noticing what they're interested in and going with it. So since my son brought up this piece of music, which I had listened to before, I was like, you know what? You brought it up. Let's go look it up. Or different discussions, things that the kids brought up, they were bringing in things from the past. And that's something we're going to be talking about soon, is like how amazing, how learning is so infinite that you can keep pulling from things your entire life from what you learn. And when things actually connect, it's so much more rich and so much more memorable. There are children these days, even, I shouldn't say children, adults that graduate from college and go get a job, and people are realizing they don't know how to apply what they've learned to the actual job. And that's what compartmentalizing thing does. It separates things. There's no connection from one subject to the next. But when you push that all away, you're able to make those connections, and you'll be amazed at how much you start noticing and hearing, books being mentioned, philosophy being mentioned, stories, books, history things that will start popping up everywhere when you're studying, because your kids will start recognizing them because it's a memorable learning experience. So please remember this. You want to connect the subjects. You want them to intermix with each other, because separating them out, it's sterile, it's boring, and it's not memorable, and your children won't connect with it, and it just leads to tears and boredom, and nobody wants that in their homeschool. So what I want you to do, what I want you to do is, right here in Relaxed Homeschooling, I want you to think of 1, things you would love to learn about, you yourself, and books you would love to read to your kids. So be thinking about that, and I'll see you next time.